Welcome back to This Week in Auburn Sports. I'm Plainsman Sports Editor Eric Wallace, joined by Plainsman Assistant Sports Editor David McKinney. We've got a few things on the docket today, but I guess we'll start with men's basketball, who, unfortunately for the front of our sports section, dropped a heartbreaker at home to Mississippi State. It ended a 7-game home winning streak, and Mississippi State ended their 22-game road losing streak. So, all in all, a pretty much inexcusable loss for a basketball program that was on the rise before that game.
Yeah, really what it came down to, that I believe Mississippi State had two 12-0 runs in the course of the game. And in the last 8 minutes of the first half, the only Auburn points were, it was 21-19 with 7 minutes to go, and the only Auburn points from there was KT Harrell splitting free throws. Mm-hmm. And Bruce Pearl mentioned in the press conference after the game, if they got out rebounded 44-43, and he said if the team can rebound and defend, then they have they have a chance to beat anybody in the league. Mm-hmm. But if they don't he said they don't have enough talent to beat anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you saw they were struggling to defend Mississippi State, which is a surprise because you would think Mississippi State was breaking their press and just getting out in transition and having open shots all night long, which is a surprise, considering that in practice, Auburn sees an up-tempo offense all the time. But, defensively, they were nowhere to be found. And guys like I.J. Reddy and Gavin Ware were just getting open jump shots the entire night.
Yeah, and another problem that Pearl spoke about was guys, not the whole team contributing. There's got KT Harrell scoring 24 points, but
Simeon Bowers obviously doing his thing.
Simeon Bowers getting 17 rebounds, but nobody else is getting more than 4.
Yeah,
or more than 3.
It's killer.
And Pearl talked about how if the whole team doesn't contribute, then they don't have a chance.
And I don't think we've seen the best of Antoine Mason yet either. He was limited to 10 points. The jump shot's still not really there. He's not really consistent from the three-point line. And it makes you wonder if that early season injury is really still bothering him because he's just not as explosive as we saw in that first game when he was getting to the basket so well.
And one more thing about men's basketball. Tosh Shamsuddin has been battling an injury all year to his left shoulder.
It was his left, yeah.
Yeah, his left shoulder. And he was favoring that on in the loss versus Mississippi State. He walked off the court, didn't play the rest of the game, and I believe he was just announced questionable for Alabama.
Yeah, we'll see. That's a big point because he gives them a lot of good defensive energy off the bench, and he's been coming around and scoring the ball a little better in recent weeks. That'll be something to keep an eye on as Auburn heads to Tuscaloosa this weekend. They'll take on the Crimson Tide on Saturday night in Coleman Coliseum. Alabama's coming off a tough loss in overtime against Arkansas last night, so you know that they'll be up and ready. But this is just another opportunity for Bruce Pearl to get that elusive road win with the Tigers. We haven't seen it yet, and if this team is going to make some noise at any point, it's going to happen. Moving to the other side of the hardwood, we got women's basketball is in a bit of a free fall, I guess you could say. Last night they lost their 6th consecutive game to Alabama. And also in the middle of it there was a pretty big fight that resulted in 3 ejections, and Auburn guard/forward Hasina Muhammad was also ejected from the game. And it's just tough. They started off pretty good this year, but once conference play started, the team just hasn't really had any answers so far.
Yeah, I think they're really struggling with the loss of last year's team MVP Tyrese Tanner.
Yeah.
She could score at will. She could score from pretty much anywhere on the floor, and she was kind of the heart and soul of the team. And she graduated, so her sister Nicole is trying to pick up the slack, but they're struggling. 6 straight conference losses.
Yeah, and we'll see if Terry Williams-Florida can get it back on track, but there's not a lot of time for that to happen left after it's gone on this long. Moving into other news, the Senior Bowl practices have been going on this week. Auburn's represented by Nick Marshall, Reese Dismukes, Cameron Artis-Payne, Sandy Coates, C.J. Uzoma, and Gabe Wright. Probably the most interesting news that's come out of there is Nick Marshall has completed the swap to defensive back. He will not be playing quarterback at the next level, it appears. It's an interesting move. He's definitely got the athleticism to do it, but I really thought we might see him try to make it as a quarterback.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discussion from a lot of draft analysts like Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, those guys talking about, obviously he's new. Well, he's not new to it, but he's got a lot of raw talent. Mm-hmm. That's what they're calling it, raw talent. So he's quick. He's very fast. He's got pretty good footwork. He's a mobile quarterback. But something that surprised me was his complete willingness to just, basically throw the quarterback jersey aside.
It was his decision.
Move to the other side of the ball. You've seen a lot of pictures of him and Sammy Coates going against each other. I'm sure that was interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully that works out for him. He was pretty highly recruited as a DB out of high school to go to Georgia. So
that's an interesting addition to his attributes that he's been a quarterback. So it could make for it could help him out in some areas, you would think. Moving on to other sports, gymnastics has a home meet versus Arkansas. They'll try to get back on the right track after losing to Florida last week. And also, this week we saw the closing of the Desmonte Leonard trial. He was sentenced to life without parole. He was also obviously convicted in the 2012 shooting of Ed Christian, Demario Pitts, and Ladarius Phillips over at University Heights. And it just brings an end to a tragic tale, honestly, in Auburn. So that's all we got for this week. We'll see you next week for This Week in Auburn Sports. Got my pen.